we have two patterns. The first pattern is direct object first, indirect object second. The second pattern is the opposite. Indirect object first, direct object second. In the first pattern, we use preposition with the indirect object. So this is going to use to whatever, or in the case of the word make, for. But remember that for is only used for the verb make. And then we have verbs that will use both patterns. So the first pattern, verbs, right? We have a list of them in chapter 10. Examples would be announce, mention, explain, recommend, describe, say, right? I told you guys that explain, recommend, and say are the ones that I hear the most incorrectly used. So examples, I recommended a movie to her would be correct, but you cannot say I recommended her a movie. That would be pattern 2, doing the indirect object first, but that's not correct. It sounds like bad English. Or for example, with explain, the teacher explained the concept to me. But if you say the teacher explained me the concept in pattern 2, that sounds strange and wrong. In pattern 2, or second pattern, where the indirect object is first, we had pretty much just 4 verbs. It's less common to have verbs that are only allowed in the second pattern. So pretty much allow, ask, cause, and cost are the common ones. Okay. So for example, with allow, I allow my dog a treat when he is good. Remember that what we want here is a noun, specifically a thing, not an action. Okay. So if you say, I allow them to talk is not a thing, it's an action, and we don't want actions. Okay. That's not what we're trying to do. So make sure that whatever you put here is like a thing or a concept, but not action, okay? So this would be an example of something not to do. All right. Ask. I asked him a question, right? We wouldn't say I asked a question to him. I asked him a question, right? You could say I asked him something. You could say I asked him the time. Or you could do a noun clause to kind of get around this. You could say I asked him what time it was. So those are possible options, but you're very limited in what you can use here. So a question, the time, noun clause, but you cannot say like, I asked him groceries, or I asked him help, or anything like that, because those require for, which is a different grammar than ask. Okay. Cause. He caused me sorrow. Sorrow is a poetic word for sad feelings. He caused me misery. That's another kind of word for bad feelings, right? He caused me problems. He caused me grief. He caused me anxiety. Okay. Mostly this is for negative things. He caused me happiness. Sounds a little bit weird. He caused me joy. Sounds a little bit weird. Cause gives it a negative feeling. And cost. These shoes cost me $25, for example. Or you could be a little bit more abstract. This job cost me my happiness, right? It's like, that's the price I paid, was happiness. Okay. All of those would work. All right. Additionally, we could have verbs that work for both patterns. Okay, we have a whole list of these on page 59. So examples would be lend, pay, offer, owe, make, show, and, right? So familiarize yourself with these verbs. We could say, for example, I paid the money to him. That's in the first pattern. Or I paid him the money. That's in the second pattern. Okay. Or for example, I showed the cards to my friend. First pattern. I showed my friend the cards. Second pattern. Okay. Or she handed her test to the teacher. First pattern. She handed her teacher the test. Second pattern. Okay. He lent the book to me, right? Like he let me borrow it. First pattern. He lent me the book. Okay. And the two warnings I have that you need to avoid something like he lent to me the book, right? This is incorrect. You cannot use a preposition with the indirect object in pattern 2, right? Or in the second pattern. Okay, this is a really easy mistake to make, so be really careful with this. He lent the book to me, he lent me the book, but never he lent to me the book. That does not sound good. And the other thing is that in the second pattern, you cannot replace the direct object with a pronoun. So he lent it to me in pattern 1 is correct, but he lent me it, trying to do this in pattern 2 is not correct. That sounds very bad. Okay. Not possible, but this is possible. The rule, once again, you cannot use a pronoun for a direct object in the second pattern. Okay. So stick to those rules, study, practice a few sentences. Also remember that make is special because it uses for, but everything else uses to. If you have any questions over the weekend, let me know. I'm happy to answer them. Thank you. Good luck.